Welcome to the Career Meets World podcast, Sophie. Such an honor to have you on today. You are such an inspiration to so many people. I got to ask you, how you been lately?
Hi, Edward. It is so great to be back here with you. I loved interviewing you on my podcast, and I've been doing great. I'm excited for, as I was saying, springtime and new beginnings and new possibilities and travel. And it's just such a great relief that the last year is the last year, and it feels like some new times. So I'm very personally happy about that.
Absolutely. It looks like things are on the up and up. I look at you as somebody who's kind of this eternal optimist and always trying to make things as bright as possible. And the reality is, you do help so many people, particularly in the immigration space. And we'll get into that in a second. But I also want to understand how you think this way. Where does this methodology in your lifestyle really come from? How do you look at life in general from early days, right? Like everyone has a very different upbringing. So I'm
Yeah.
curious if you could share a little bit about your background so more people get to know you.
Thank you. Well, I'm an immigration lawyer, and my dad was an immigration lawyer, so there's all this immigration law stuff going on. The thank you for the comment about the optimism. It's definitely something I have intentionally cultivated in my life through going through several different dark times. And so I would say, I remember being, I think it is my nature, but I also remember being a kid and being made fun of for being a Pollyanna and then trying to hide it and to act depressed to fit in. And I'm like, screw it. Life's too short. I would rather live a happy life. So definitely intentionally cultivated, but does that answer your question?
Yeah, a bit. I know you mentioned that your dad was also an immigration lawyer, and
Yeah.
clearly you followed a little bit of his footsteps. What do you think you kind of took away from your dad, or why did you pursue this
Oh, he
pathway?
was such an inspiration to me. He uh, departed from the physical world, or croaked, as I like to joke, about 6 years ago. But he was an immigration lawyer. He was my mentor, my friend, my inspiration to do this type of work. He was like he loved seeing himself as David fighting the Goliath of the U.S. government with his little sling and rocks, but knowing exactly where to aim and how to hit so that he could win victories for his clients. He was a Marine. He was a courtroom attorney, and he accidentally fell into immigration law in the early 80s through a corporate job he got after getting out of the Marine Corps. But he fell in love with it and then fell in love with my mom, who was his client from Germany. And so I grew up around immigrants all the time. We'd have friends over from Russia and a house guest from Vietnam. And then my dad, would go to Bahrain, and then we'd go over to our Indian friend's house for dinner. And so, and my mom taught us German growing up. So I grew up somewhat bilingual. And they put me on a plane to Germany when I was 9 by myself to go spend half a year living with my grandparents in like my own little German dual immersion experience, which was kind of scary as a 9-year-old because I just went to school in Germany not knowing anything. And I would just like sit in the class and practice cursive until like a month in, there was just this light bulb moment where I was like, oh my God, my grandparents were just talking about going to the grocery store and what food was on sale. And I think they spoke in German and I understood. So I had a lot of these experiences early on that opened me up to being receptive and really loving meeting people from different cultures and countries and linguistic backgrounds. And then I love studying languages. So at Stanford, was supposed to be a German major, but got totally distracted and ended up studying abroad on impulse in Moscow, Russia, and doing Russian immersion. And then was like, oh, but I know now I have like the passionate, dark night of the soul in cold wintry Russia. Now I need to go spend springtime in Florence, Italy, and discover the Renaissance and art and that side of a passionate culture. And so I never ended up studying abroad in Germany because I just kept learning more languages. And so I loved all of that. And um, when I was in law school and I was evaluating all the options of like, do I go in house? Do I go into government? Do I become a prosecutor? Do I become a civil rights activist? Like, I just kept coming back to the values my dad had instilled in me of like helping individual people who want to make a better life for themselves and their families to be able to proactively like take control of their destiny. So it doesn't have to be this big scary thing that is overwhelming to them, but it can become a manageable process to lead to security and freedom.
Appreciate you sharing that story, and particularly the fact that you lived abroad multiple times and have
Yeah.
seen different
Oh,
types of.
after I had my baby, we moved to Spain on impulse, and that was really hard. Like, well, I love studying abroad. This should be fine. And I was like chasing a 10-month-old who learned how to walk really young through these like cobblestone streets where like horses were clopping around and there was like cigarette butts and broken glass on the cobblestone, and I was freaking out. And it's totally different going as a young mom, not for a job and not for a school, but just for fun. Very different from studying abroad, but it gives me a lot of respect for my clients who are moving with young kids and families, because that's some intense stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely difficult to to come from a different country and kind of figure out not just the legal piece, but the assimilation piece in general.
Yeah, yeah.
What do you typically see from some of the clients that you work with in terms of maybe, let's call it, their major pain points or just areas where they can really thrive as they step into America or
Mm.
any other country?
That's a great question. Well, Silicon Valley, where I live and where most of our clients are coming, is actually more than 50% immigrants in our general population. So that's one of the things I love about living here. There's a lot of ways to meet people, but over the last year in the pandemic, more folks are moving to other tech hubs or areas of the country that are, have a lower cost of living. Um, I mean, the pain point people come see me for is very strong, and that is they need to live or work legally in the US and they're having issues, or they want to get a visa or green card or citizenship. So we iron that out for them. But, there's so many other things that people need to develop a life along the way, whether it's um, career advice or how to make new friends or accent reduction or um, just trying to understand um, how to date people here. I mean, those aren't necessarily things they're going to talk to me about, but they're all really important because they're all what makes a life.
For sure. And I know that, interestingly enough, the whole immigration landscape changes. You're right. The pandemic has afforded people this kind of unique opportunity to live in any major metropolitan area, particularly larger tech hubs, whether it be Miami or Austin. I think San Francisco still has a place to play for the next
Oh
decade,
yeah.
2 decades.
Oh
It's very
yeah.
much a gold rush environment, as I like to call it.
Yeah.
What are you seeing right now as things kind of shift? Let's call it politically, but more so in terms of how people are moving, how businesses are actually supporting individuals. What are you personally seeing in that domain?
We're seeing a ton of hiring and a ton of immigration sponsorship and a ton of people um, changing jobs, and a ton of people who have been stuck outside the United States now trying to find ways to come in because their life and their dreams got put on hold. And now they see the signal of the change of the Biden administration as a like it's really like with the election, America's brand in the world kind of shifted dramatically overnight. And whereas a few weeks before, my German friends were saying, huh, why would I want to come to the US? You have a racist country that's on fire. Um, but Fortunately, that changed right after the election, and now people like it here again. So, I'm seeing people who are excited to just move forward with their lives. There's been a lot of marriage proposals lately that we've seen, and new jobs and new companies and investors investing in startups. So it seems it's an exciting time for people.
For sure. I think America's brand kind of oscillates back and forth every 4 to 8 years. I don't know if we have a consistent brand. That being said, I know you spent actually a lot of time developing your own personal brand, right?
Yeah,
Whether it's
yeah,
through your law firm, other work you do.
yeah.
Curious how you've gone about doing that, right? It's not easy to necessarily build a name for yourself, let alone build your own practice. Can you share a little bit more about that journey to start your own law firm?
Sure. It was really scary, and necessity is the mother of invention. I was a stay-at-home mom. I had given up my law career because of postpartum depression and PTSD and other stuff I had gone through from Me Too types of things, and just kind of like gave up working for my dad when it got to be too hard, and had my kids, and sort of, I love them, and having them when they were a young age was really challenging for me. I really needed support that I didn't know how to access and that I didn't have. And I felt really ashamed about it. And so I just kind of gave up a lot of things, and put up walls, and ended up really like retreating, and being isolated. And um, when I got the news that my dad had died really unexpectedly, it um, just sent this big jolt through my life. And um, I had been, arguing with him before he died that I should not be part of his like estate plan, because I didn't want to screw up his legacy, and I didn't want all of this. I didn't trust myself. I didn't know if I could keep his business running, because I'd never done that, and I didn't know if I didn't I didn't want to screw up all of his clients' cases and have them all be deported. So I didn't know he followed through, but he actually did listen to me, and he made other plans. But after he died, I didn't know that yet. So I thought that I was going to like carry on his legacy, and in that aftermath, um, things became challenging with my marriage, and ended up getting divorced when I had, when my kids were like 2 and 5. So it was a really hard time, and I needed to figure out how to survive in Silicon Valley as a single mom who didn't have a professional network here, and who hadn't worked in almost 5 years. And I mean, fear is such an interesting motivator. Frankly, I was so afraid that I was unemployable and that nobody would hire me, that I thought it would be easier just to start a law firm and work with clients. And I'm so glad I did it, because it's been so rewarding in so many ways. I bootstrapped the team. We have almost 20 people now. We're growing, we're hiring. We've helped thousands of clients and hundreds of companies and startups. And it's just so inspiring every day to see all the people we're able to support. And I was just under a lot of pressure to have to figure out really quickly, how to go from 0 to 60 with my law firm. I needed cash. And so personal branding and marketing seemed to be the way to do it. And I always excelled in school by being an overachiever, like A+ student. And so, and then I think about these case types, but I really wanted to position myself with Silicon Valley and tech startups and extraordinary ability visas. And so I would like vet my potential clients on these characteristics of: have you won awards? Have you judged competitions? Have you written articles? Have people written articles about you? Did you invent something? Blah, blah, blah. And every time I would read it, I'd be like, oh, I need to be able to keep up with my clients. And so I like used the government regulations as my personal branding marketing checklist. And I was like, okay, I will achieve the things on this list. Then I know I will have arrived. And that actually led to a lot of, that evolved into our marketing efforts for the firm that we engage in.
It's so interesting where people's kind of drivers come from, and
Yeah.
that relationship you shared with your dad, I'm sure, is a precious one. And if it's fair of me to say, I'm sure he's proud of everything that you've achieved and
Thank
accomplished
you.
today.
Thank you.
It's not easy to start anything because, especially when your back is against the wall, when you're in this low point, and
Oh God, there were weeks when um like I remember I have this like one memory of like pacing out by Castro Street in Mountain View outside, sobbing on the phone because um like I just moved into some rinky dink apartment and like my available cash that I personally had was like 15K and my payroll was like 13K and I didn't have enough money to, pay payroll and make it through another 2 weeks. And I had to make this decision of like, do I take all my personal money and use it to pay payroll so I can keep this business going another 2 weeks when I don't know if I'm going to get any more clients or what I would do next? And back was definitely up against the wall, and I was fully committed. Right, I had to do it.
so I got to ask, what happened after those 2 weeks?
um I paid payroll and I put on my best smile and I went into the mode of, okay, I have no idea how to help myself, but at least I'm going to help other people. And there was a lot of healing in that process, and um, managed to sign up enough clients to pay the bills and keep going. Eventually pay myself back a few months later.
It's pretty inspiring what people can do when they have 2 weeks to figure everything out. Those are the
Yeah.
moments really where I feel like people truly thrive and understand, okay, I need to figure this out. I need to get very deliberate with every single minute in the day because
Right.
if I don't, things are going to be
Right.
extremely tough.
Right.
There's this classic immigrant story, which pretty much reflects everything that you just described. And so many people I'm sure you work with share similar types of stories. What's your best advice for a lot of people going through that right now? If you could maybe share three, four different nuggets of wisdom about how to think
um,
about these things.
Thank you. That's great. Yeah, and I mean, I have a lot of advantages that I'm really appreciative of. Like, I'm from America and speak English as a native language and went to a great university. Um, but even with all of that, I totally identify with like imposter syndrome and not having a network and not knowing where to start. Um, Back then, the mantra I adopted was fake it till you make it. Um, because I really didn't believe in myself at the time. And I thought, I truly thought that people would like hunt me down and I don't know, stone me for pretending to be an immigration lawyer or something. And even though I knew what I was doing and could figure it out, but I was so scared. So I had to find a way to at least, suspend, what is that, temporary suspension of disbelief or something. Like I had to just compartmentalize those fears and put them aside. And now I think of it as like playing with an archetype. Like, how would I act if I were a, magnate, tycoon, super successful person? Okay, I'm gonna like act like that person for today. And it's really liberating. Some days it's like, oh, how could I pretend, how could I act like a child? And everything I do was sort of playful, curiosity. And could I bring to all of these meetings today? So you can do it in different ways. So fake it till you make it is basically a way to like play with personas and archetypes to open up different parts of your brain, and harness that. And eventually I changed it into fake it to believe it until you believe it because you really are it. So I would say we all have this huge reserve of untapped potential. And if we can go within and listen to our hearts, then all of this wisdom is available for us. And clarity, getting clear on what's important is so valuable because there's so much noise. And I used to think for so long that the way to find happiness was to go through the motions of what other people say makes you like more statistically likely to be happy. Like, go to school, graduate, go to grad school, take the bar exam, get married, have 2.3 children that are 3 years apart, live in a house with a white picket fence, like do all the things. But just finding through so many experiences that there's no cookie cutter solution for how to lead a fulfilling life. And that really comes from within, and it's different for each person. And there's really no judgment about what is, nobody else can tell you where to find that meaning. And it's something that comes from like listening to that voice within and going for it. Um, and and life has become so much more fun and exciting since I started going for it and getting clear about what I wanted and taking those risks and getting in alignment with them. When I was depressed, it was so hard to see what, like, really, like, what was the point? Like, I was like, well, okay, I have kids, so I need to be a good mom because that's my obligation. But at some point, I just hit a wall, and it was like, dang, I don't want to pass on to these kids that their legacy is to go through life robotically, fulfilling other people's expectations and being miserable. That's not the type of parent I want to be. So I'm going to have to figure this out for myself because, and that was scary too, right? Because as a mom, and I was a stay-at-home mom, and my parents always told me that you got to be there with your kids all the time and quality time, and you can't outsource the love of your children to like a paid caretaker. And I got a lot of guilt for all this, so I was really afraid to work. I was afraid that it would screw up my kids forever. But now I can see, um, when I'm able to like sit around the dinner table with them and be like, guess what, kids, my podcast is trending in Estonia and Abu Dhabi. And like, and I got to help edit a law secretly for a member of Congress, and I hope it's going to change the world real soon. Like, I can see their eyes light up, and I just want them to know that, whatever it is for them, they can do what they want.
It's certainly a delicate balance between just being a parent, being present, versus also creating a source of inspiration for your kids, which essentially
Yeah.
what you're consistently doing through your law firm, through your podcast, through all your other work. And it's ongoing. I see the output every single day. It's easy to look at successful people and think that everything just happened. But the truth is, most people that achieved anything today, like yourself, really had a difficult point in time or multiple difficult points in time. And I know that for a lot of people who are thinking about immigrating to the States, it's not an easy journey, and it's certainly not going to happen right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
Probably less than 1% chance that happens.
Right.
And
But you
as
can
you,
take deliberate steps to set the course and map out the pathways and figure out which is the best one for you and start taking actions.
so what are some of those steps? Like, how do you start working with clients, and how's the best way that people can start working with you?
Oh, thank you. Well, our website is www.alcorn.law, and there you will find a variety of resources, including our podcast, Immigration Law for Tech Startups, a chart of the most common immigration options to the United States, our blog that has all of my TechCrunch articles. There's a contact us button if people want to talk about their options and schedule a consultation. Usually when people reach out to us, we try to get a sense for, you know, how do you want to come to the US? Is it, or like, why do you want to come to the US and how soon do you want to come to the US? And then we'll send a questionnaire about their startup or their education or their investment, or their, talk to them and their fiance about marriage, just depending on whatever we identify. And we try to be consultative, strategic partners. We're not like a visa mill that will just, spit out an H-1B because that's what somebody thinks they need. We're actually going to take the time to talk and make sure it's the best option, or help people choose based on whatever is most important to them for priorities in their life among a set of different options that they might qualify for.
That's great. And that's how any business should operate, is really be consultative and make sure that you're providing that level of white glove service that people deserve. And
Thank you.
you're continuing to grow this business. I got to ask you, what's the goal for the next couple of years? How do you intend to grow, expand, whether it be your business or yourself?
Thank you. I want the business to grow. I mean, we set a 10-year goal and we have 7 years left. And the goal is that it would probably maybe be like 3x bigger than it is now. But I think we're going to hit that way closer than the next 7 years based on how things are going. And, but I love the law firm. It's going to be a part of my life forever, I think. And the more, like lately, you know, there's this new immigration option for international startup founders. And it's like the first time there's a new way to come to the United States in decades potentially. And it's so exciting. So we've been doing a big push for that. It's basically like C-suite executives of relatively new startups that have raised at least $250K from US investors. Their founders can come to the US. So we've been really busy with that, which is super exciting. We actually got our first clients before Biden the administration made the official announcement, because I had an intuition that it would be coming. So we're like ahead of the curve and about to file several cases for that now. So that's super exciting. And I mean, I want to also have more conversations like this one, Edward. I love what I do, and I love that we're, you know, scaling and deploying immigration options to support people. But I'm also excited to explore the whole podcast medium and matters of the heart and spirituality and meaning and connection, and why it is that we're all doing these. Like, I get to see passionate people every day, and it's so inspiring to me. And there's just so much potential to create good in the world by us connecting and sharing our stories and uplifting each other. I want to do more of that as well.
Yeah, you're doing an incredible job already with your podcast. Can you remind folks the name of it? I know you and I had a great conversation on it, but I want to make sure people check.
Everybody can check out our interview, and we'll give you the link so you can link to it here too. It's called Immigration Law for Tech Startups, and you can find it on iTunes and Google Podcasts and Spotify. And we have a lot of episodes lately. There have been more interviews. We also have a library of at least 50 episodes on different specific immigration topics. If anybody needs to get like a primer on what is an H-1B or how do I get a green card for myself, there's all those topics as well.
Perfect. We'll make sure to include all of that in the show notes. And look, Sophie, before we let every single one of our guests off the hook, we got to put them through the hot seat and ask you some personalized questions. Okay. So, got to ask, are you ready?
Is that the first question?
Yeah, probably. That's a good one.
I'm like very nervous right now. Yes, I'm ready. Let's do it.
Let's do this. We'll make this fun. Okay. You spent a lot of your career in the immigration space and obviously followed a little bit of your dad's footsteps. You've done an incredible job. If you could start any other company, what would the industry be? What would you focus on? Just curious.
I would start a media brand. I would follow Oprah, and it would be about stories and spirituality and human connections. And yeah.
Perfect. Question number 2 for you. I asked this of everyone. If you and I had an opportunity to jet off from San Francisco to New York City right now, and you and I get to go to Times Square, I give you an unlimited budget. You get to smear whatever you want across all of Times Square. What would you put up there?
Follow your heart.
Okay. I love it. Last question for you really just boils down to my personal passion for learning. I know you're a deep learner as well. If you had to read one book for the rest of time, what would that book be?
What? Oh my God.
No pressure.
No pressure. It would be a book of Khalil Gibran poetry. Because wow. I love the Sufi mysticism, and there's so many layers of meaning that you can unpack in those beautiful words. Or
Always
Rumi. What am I
surprised.
thinking? I don't know. One of the two, maybe Rumi. They're both good. Couldn't say. Okay.
We'll give you two. Hey, look, Sophie, you survived the hot seat. Appreciate you spending some time with us today. It's such a pleasure chatting with you as always. I want to make sure that people can stay connected. Where's the best place to find you on the internet?
um, you can check out the website, alcorn.law. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'm also on Instagram, Sophie Alcorn.
Beautiful. Make sure to check out Sophie. And of course, if you need any support with immigration law, Sophie is the master and the person to go to. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today. And as we always say at Career Meets World, go unleash your wildest potential. Thank you so much.
I love it. Thanks for having me, Edward.